so much for being here with us at the Fourth Ward School. It's really a pleasure to get to talk to you and learn a bit more about what Virginia City was like, a bit more about yourselves and your families.
Thank you for having us.
And so, who do we have the pleasure of talking to today? We'll start with you.
My name is Charlene Young Etheridge, and my parents were Fred and Jessie Young. They were both born here in Virginia City. They both attended school here, and they both graduated from the Fourth Ward School.
How delightful. Thank you.
My name is Joan Gallagher Petrini, and I went all the way through 12 years of school here, as my folks did. Clarice Young Gallagher and Mervyn Gallagher were graduated here from the Fourth Ward School.
Thank you.
My name is Doris Gilly. My parents went to this school. I had all this stuff and it went out of my head. But they went to school here and raised me here in town. And I haven't lived anyplace else but Virginia City and Carson City. So.
And why would you want to?
Well, I spent 6 long months in Las Vegas when I
I'm
had
sorry.
Me too. I had just had my son and, moved away, and my mom and dad were up here, and my dad was John Grubats and my mom was Mildred Hunter Grubats, and they were great parents.
Well, fabulous. Thank you. Thank you. So, you ladies are part of a group that has a certain nickname and a certain connotation that you got here when you were kids at school. Would you let us know what that nickname was of your group?
We were called the Lousy Five. There were 5 of us in this group, and we were named that by our principal, Mr. Gallagher. And it seemed to me, I hope I'm remembering properly, we were all chatting and whispering and not doing our homework. And we were trying to figure out if we were going to be the fabulous 5 or the wonderful 5, and we were going through all that. And the principal said, if you don't start doing your homework, you're going to be known as the Lousy Five. And that's the name that stuck.
That's stuck.
But I thought it was when we were playing basketball in PE at the gym, and he was watching us, and as we were walking out, he said, "You are 5 of the lousiest players I have ever seen."
Oh, maybe that was it.
I think that was it.
I'm sure it was used more than once, right? Yes.
Yeah, and that's how we got it, and honestly, we were notorious, The Lousy Five was always getting into trouble.
So we have 1/3 of the Lousy Five. Who were the other 2 in the 5?
Agli Dufresne
And Carol Hunter.
And then Carol was my cousin, and they both have passed
They're both
away.
gone now.
And what year did you graduate?
1956.
So you were the class of 56?
Yes.
Class of 56.
How many were in your class?
7.
7, yes.
Wow.
One boy.
1 boy and 6 girls, all the way through.
Wow.
Yes.
We would make him president of the class, but then we wouldn't let him have anything to say anyhow. But he was president all those years, George.
Right. And then when we had classes, we'd change rooms sometimes. And if we sat in the front, George would sit in the back. And if we sat in the back, George would sit in the front. He didn't want anything to do with it. And after we graduated, he moved, and we've never heard from him.
I was just going to say the same thing. We've never seen him again.
I wonder what happened to old George. You 6 girls must have scared him away.
Yeah.
Right out of Virginia City. What were some things that you did for fun
When
you were kids? Recreation. Yeah.
Well, I loved to find pretty rocks. And I would walk down 6 Mile Canyon and find pretty rocks. And then up by the church, it was not cemented, it was all dirt. And I'd get a spoon and I'd go dig and find pretty rocks with quartz or whatever. And my grandfather's wagons were right across the street from us. He was a teamster. and his wagons with the that he used, the wheels, the big wheels and everything. I'd climb up on those, and I was pretending I was driving the big wagons, and so that was my fun.
That does sound fun.
It was fun.
What else? What would you do for fun?
Well, I had a neighbor that lived just a house away from us.
Mm-hmm.
We're like sisters, but we fought like sisters too. We used to play, and we'd have a fight, and I'd go home and I'd slam the door, and Mom said, "You're mad at Pat?" And I'm never gonna play with her again. And I'd go in my bedroom and sit down for a while. Then I get up and leave, and she said, "Where are you going?" "Over to Pat's." And half the time Pat's coming over to my house. So we were the only two kids in the neighborhood, so we had to get along. And she still knows how to get my goat.
Oh, I bet. Well, she's had years of practice.
Yeah, she has. She has.
Now, that brings up a story that you shared before we were rolling about your interaction with your two friends here sometimes. Do you recall what you'd said?
They used to not be very nice to me. They used to beat up on me.
Terrible to say.
My dad said one time, "Why don't you hit them back?" "Oh, no, they hit harder." So, and then as we got older, I mean, we're so close, and they're my best friends.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad you got over it.
Got over it.
Good.
Well, I was very shy.
Yeah.
They weren't.
I think some of the fun that I remember was when we got a little older and we didn't have anywhere to swim.
Mm-hmm.
Once a year we went to Bowers Mansion.
Mm-hmm.
But the bus that they took us in, you'd have to see our little bus. It was a little blue, I'm not too sure
A van.
what the make was.
Wasn't it a Chevy?
Maybe it was a Chevy. And Huey, my Uncle Hugh Gallagher, would drive us. And that was our fun once a year, was going to Bowers.
Yeah. It's amazing to think of a place that, doesn't have swimming pools, but you have to drive.
Yeah.
And what a swimming pool that is, though.
Uh-huh.
Quite a
Yeah.
historic swimming pool.
And it was once a year.
Once a
Once
year.
a year.
Once a
Yeah.
year we went.
Yeah.
And it was the time, at that time, there was the polio epidemic.
Right.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And my mother said, "You can go to Bowers with the class, but do not get in the water." And at Bowers, they rented bathing suits. And
Not very attractive ones.
yeah, they were very attractive, and I was a little tiny thing anyway, and I got it and rented it. I think I paid 15 cents for it, but I put it on and I got in the water and it got wet and it was made out of towels. And I was standing there and I thought, oh my gosh, my mother was right.
What was that like, for people, nowadays, in current times, we have, coronavirus, right? I can imagine that polio maybe has some parallels, but maybe a little different. But what was that like?
Well, they were frightened for us to go near water or anything, but we were kind of isolated up here. But my cousin, Patricia, she was my mom's brother's daughter. She got polio.
Oh, wow.
And it was a very, very dreadful case of polio, and she was severely paralyzed. So that, of course, scared everybody.
Sure.
And it was just a time when we had to be very careful and cautious because they didn't have the vaccine and anything for it.
Do you remember getting the vaccine?
Yes,
Yeah,
I do too.
I do too.
There was, I believe, was it Sabin and Salk?
I believe so.
Sabin
Yeah.
and Salk.
Was it on the sugar cube?
Under the sugar cube.
Wow.
Yeah. I think that did we ever know anybody but Pat, your cousin, that was taken with polio?
No.
I don't think so.
I don't think I do. Angelo had it, my husband, when he was young.
Did he?
Yeah, when he was in Hawthorne, he did. He had it. Luckily, it just was one lady was offended.
My mother did too. She had it too, and that was before the outbreak, the epidemic.
Sure.
Because, but she had it, and she had kind of a paralyzed foot. But she
did.
worked on her foot.
You bet. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have memories of how World War II affected the town or your families, or either before, during, after?
I do.
Yeah. Sure.
At certain times, my father wasn't well. He was a diabetic, and he wasn't well, so he was at home with us. But he worked. He was a bartender in town. And I remember during the war, they had blackouts. Do you remember the blackouts?
Yeah.
Yes.
And they put the siren on, and Dad would have to go around our neighborhood. I think we had 2 lights on the poles, and he would have to turn those out for a certain length of time.
Yeah.
And then when the siren came back on, he'd go back down and turn them on.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I remember when it was over. Do you remember when the war was
Oh,
over?
yes. Oh,
My
yes.
mom let me take my wagon up. It was in what, 45?
Yes.
My mom let me take
45.
my wagon up to the store. And so I went up. My dad was bartending at the Washoe Club. And I went to the store and got some groceries in the wagon. I put it in, and I was pulling it down past the bar. And the siren was ringing. And the 8 o'clock bell was dinging. And I thought, what's going on? And I was scared. And my dad came out of the bar and he said, come back. And I went in the bar and I said, what happened? He said, the war's over. He said, stay here with me. He said, everybody's going crazy.
And do you remember the church bells were ringing, the siren was ringing,
Yes.
the cars were going up and down C Street, you know. Everybody was out.
Oh, it was such a
Yes.
wonderful feeling
Yeah.
for even as young as we were.
Yes, indeed, yeah. But
I'm getting
that
chills
was-
just hearing you talk about
Yes.
it. You know, yeah, I'm sure it was
I
just.
got chills just thinking
Yeah, I did too.
It does.
Wow.
It really
It was
does
really-
when you think, sometimes, how often do we think about that?
Yeah, I know. We just don't. You know?
And we had to
don't
have
chat
those-
like this. I think
What
it's,
did we
I
do?
think it's nice.
Well,
to
we had to have the
memories.
stamps.
Oh, that's right.
We had to have the stamps to get food.
Right?
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. That's true.
Yeah, you had a book of green stamps, I think they were, and you had to go into the store with the stamps. And I think we were pretty
rationed.
fortunate being in Virginia City because we were a small town and
We all knew each other.
yeah, and so
Everybody looked out for everybody.
Exactly.
We didn't, even if my folks went to Reno, we didn't lock the door, by the way. We never locked our front door, ever. And if they went to Reno, my aunt and Uncle Jess and Fred, or Mildred and John would look after us while my folks were in Reno. We always had somebody to look after us. That's what was not like now today, but
oh yeah.
They didn't even, they left the keys in the car.
we did.
Wow.
We really did. We didn't have to. For a long time, I don't think we even had a key to our front door. I don't
think
ever
we did.
remember having a key.
I hated to go to Reno because I got car sick every time I
Understandable,
went
yeah.
to Reno. And I'd say, please, let me stay home with Vic and Cecil and Pat. No, we're going to buy a dress. I don't care. Buy it and I'll wear it. And finally, as I got older, I started being able to see over the steering wheel and I could drive. So I started driving down the grade, and I wasn't old enough to be driving. And my mom would get in the back seat of the car and fall asleep.
Wow.
Because she was scared to death.
Scared.
How old were each of you when you started driving?
I was 12.
Oh gosh, we always got to drive a little bit, didn't
Yeah.
we?
Yeah.
I think we were all 12.
I would say that, yeah. And we were also grateful to get that, get our license. But I think we were all driving around pretty much.
I was driving the car and, I was at home and Joan came to visit. She lived not too far. And my dad only let me drive up and down our street. And she said, let's go on C Street. I said, well, I'm not supposed to.
Yeah.
Joan
So-
was always the leader. She would always say, let's do this. Well, no, I'm
Not
not supposed
awful.
to. Oh, they'll never find out. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
But anyway, we drove up on C Street. We were going down the street. I was doing just fine. And Joan said, oh my gosh, my mother's on the front porch. So we all... And her mother said to her, that the car was driving by the house with no one driving?
A ghost car.
We did, we ducked.
We ducked.
Oh
my
gosh.
Yeah, I used to take the car out and do the same thing. I'd ride up and down A Street and B Street. I wouldn't go down on C Street because that's where my mom and dad would be. But then Dad would say, Mildred, didn't you get gas in the car today? She said, yeah, I filled it up. Well, we don't have that much gas in the car. Because Doris had the car out and was driving all over the back streets of Virginia City.
There must
with
be a
her
leak in the
friends.
tank or something, huh?
Not really.
What was it like if you wanted to make a phone call? Could you walk me through that process?
Yes.
That was fun. My grandmother had this phone up on the wall. And you have to, ring. You have to wind this way and talk this way. And we would tease the operator sometimes, I have to admit, didn't we?
Like how?
Well, what would we say to them? We'd say something to
We'd change our voices. Like,
try to change our
like
voice.
they didn't see the number flopping down.
And like we were calling somebody else, but they knew, but we didn't think they did.
I thought it was interesting too. We had a phone like that on our wall. And my mom would put her arm and she'd get little things in her arm for talking so long. But if there was a fire in town, I remember she'd ring to the operator. There was a telephone operator up on C Street. It was at the old board. And she'd call and she'd say, Mildred, where's the fire? And Mildred would say, oh, it's down by the dump, Jessie, no worries.
Yeah. And Mildred was my mother.
Oh, wow. So your mom was, oh, how wonderful.
Mildred and also Pat's mother were operators for years, weren't they?
And Anna Laughlin.
Anna Laughlin, yes.
We used to tease Anna.
We used to tease her.
What did you used to say? Hello, hello?
Yes. No, we would say, how's your head? And she'd say, hello, hello. What, isn't that mean?
And then the board, they pulled the shades down, only we could peek in and knock out and walk by.
Yes, we did.
Do you have any stories that you recall that your mom shared of working as an operator?
Yeah, I can't think of any. She always knew when we were on the phone, but I really can't remember any of them.
It seems like if you were an operator, you were like information for the whole town,
Oh, yeah.
Keep eyes and ears of the whole town, right?
Exactly.
Somebody would say, well, I'm looking for so-and-so. Oh, I just saw him walk down the street.
No
You know?
secrets, huh?
No secrets.
That's right, too, yeah.
And you brought up fire, right? What were some fires that you experienced?
Do you remember our post office?
Oh, yeah.
Our post office caught on fire, and it was just up on C Street. So
Across the street from the fire station.
right from across the
Ironically,
street.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right
and
across.
Wow.
I remember walking up there with my parents. I think we were in high school, maybe.
Well,
I don't know,
I'm
maybe
not
8th grade or
awfully
something.
sure.
Yeah.
But the whole post office went up, and the Washoe Club.
Yeah,
Oh, wait, no, it was the Wonder Bar.
Wonder Bar,
Yeah,
wasn't
that's
that?
where my dad had worked.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
Gordon Lane or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
think. Mhm.
Yeah. But they used to oil the boards to keep them, what do I want to say? Keep them good,
Yeah.
So there was a lot of oil on these wooden sidewalks
Oh,
and
yes.
everything. So that was part of the problem, that it just took off.
Oh, yeah.
And my dad was helping fight the fire, and he was standing on the roof, and one of the guys that he was with, he said, John, you better get off the roof right now. And Dad got off the roof, and it
And it
collapsed.
came down, collapsed.
I remember
That was a
fire.
terrible one.
It was.
It's a wonder more places
Yes.
didn't go down.
Exactly.
or
It
something like that.
bad.
Well, they had-
The flames were shooting.
Didn't they have Carson City come up, and
Probably.
some from Reno
They probably
too?
did.
Yeah, so.
When that fire happened up on the divide, it burned 40 homes.
Oh,
Yeah, it burned 40 homes.
And I don't remember any of those homes up there. Is that something?
I don't really recall the homes, but my grandparents did live
Yeah,
up
they
there,
lived there.
and they lost a lot. They lost their pictures and everything from that house.
My
burned.
mother's wedding pictures and everything were in that house because she had just moved out with my dad and left everything, and they lost everything. That's why I don't have a lot of.
Yeah, we don't have any.
We don't have a lot,
a
do
lot of
we?
pictures. My dad and her mom were sister and brother. Yeah.
Yeah, they were great people.
Yes, they were.
We were very
All of
lucky.
them. We were so lucky with
We were
all
very
of our.
lucky with our
And
parents.
you know, the old people in Virginia's, you Virginians, they would watch out for each other,
Mhm.
like we said. But when my mom would get after my dad passed away, when she'd get too much snow, Fred Garrett would come down and shovel her out. The neighbors all took care of
They
other
did.
people.
They watched out for people.
Yes.
When the Divide Fire started, there was an Italian lady that lived next door to us, and the houses were, well, you had to walk sideways if you wanted to walk through this alleyway. And Mom's getting stuff putting into the car, and she said, "Oh, we got to get Mrs. Coletti some stuff," because all of her sons were in the service. And she went over, and she told Mrs. Coletti to get packed and bring it over to the car. So I was out there by the car. She said, "You stay right here." Mrs. Coletti comes out with a family portrait and a bottle of whiskey.
The essentials, right?
That's all she wanted. And Mom said, "Is that all you're taking?" Yeah. So she took her back into the house and made her bring some clothes out.
Isn't that something? Yeah.
My dad was a bartender all these years up in Virginia City, and everybody loved him.
Oh, yeah.
As that bar, wherever he was tending bar, it was always
Yes.
packed because
Oh, yeah.
he was such a nice man, a gentleman, but everybody just loved him. Yeah.
Always.
And he was
did.
so friendly and
Mhm.
caring and everything,
Yeah,
yeah.
he was kind. He was quiet.
It made that place. It was the brass rail.
Uh-huh.
Well, that even then, right?
Right.
The brass rail where he worked, and that was a real popular place because of him.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
But he began at the Crystal Bar.
I was just going to ask you
Yeah,
that.
he began at the Crystal Bar, and he wasn't 21. So they made him quit for 3 months until he was 21, and we went back to work.
That's
But
right.
that was what he did. That's what he liked to do, and he worked for the brass rail for years.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
For years he did, yeah.
The brass rail with Fred Young and Pat Hart.
It was, sure.
Bartender seems like another role in town that's sort of being the eyes and the ears of town, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was
So you
18
interact with
bars
everyone.
in town. And what did we have? 3 grocery stores? Yeah, Paul Gerardo's.
And 3 gas stations.
And 3 gas stations.
Mhm.
And that was it. And after every basketball game or Christmas program or anything, everybody said, "Well, let's meet at the Crystal."
Uh-huh.
Nobody went to anyone else's house. They all met
Yeah,
at the bar.
yeah.
The living room,
It
right?
was the living room.
Yeah, it was like that, yeah. That's right.
And what did your parents do?
Well, my dad worked in the mines for a while, and then as he got older, he ran statewide, and he got the state mining inspector, and that's what he did most of his life. However, when he'd come home at night, sometimes he'd go to the brass rail, and he would deal. They had 21 then, so he would work all day in Carson, and then he'd come back. And my mom, she did little odds and ends jobs, but she never had a steady job as such.
What are some of the odds and ends she'd do?
She worked at the Territorial Enterprise as Doris and I did, and
you?
with the paper. We were downstairs with Jim Turney, weren't we?
Yeah, and what would he call it? He was bald and what would he call
Yeah.
it?
Anyhow, she did that. She loved that little job. She thought that was good, and that kept her going a lot. Then she had her mom and dad, which is Charlene's relatives also. She took care of them off and on when they were sick. So she and my dad were only 59 when they both passed away in 4 months at the same time.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that often happens when a couple is
Yeah.
so very close.
Yeah.
It's got to be
Yeah.
hard to lose them both at the same time, but it's also in a way very beautiful that
Yeah, exactly.
they wanted to be together.
Sure, yeah. We used to go down to the state capitol and visit when he had the office down there, and that was fun. Sometimes our class would go down or something, and then I even took my kids down there to visit the Capitol, and we got to know everybody there because my dad was one of them, and so we got to know them all, which was kind of fun too.
Wow, that's a unique experience not every kid gets to do, right?
Another thing that I found interesting is we had a lot of movie stars that came here.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they would stay usually at what was that, the Break-A-Heart Ranch.
Yeah,
most of the
usually
time.
for coming for divorces.
For divorces.
That's right.
And my dad would call me if he was at the bar, and he'd say, Rita Hayworth's in town. Clark Gable's in town. And I'd go up and get an autograph.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Cool.
yeah, we did. We had a lot of
I can't remember who Pat and I chased to get an autograph because he kept dodging us. And finally, I think we cornered him in one of the saloons up there, and they were very, very pleasant.
They
But
were.
They were. They gave us, autographs, and I still have my autograph book with their autographs in it.
Oh, how delightful.
That's wonderful. I don't have mine.
Oh, darn.
No, darn.
It's in my cedar chest.
Yeah, it's nice to keep those things.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, that's
remember
good.
when Dad called and wanted me to come see Rita Hayworth. I zipped up and I was looking around the streets for her, and I expected to see this beautiful, gorgeous woman, except the lady had her hair tied in a bandana and no makeup on, and I thought, that can't be her.
Yeah.
Doesn't look anything like the pictures, yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
We had a lot of them.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then we had a lot of the people when Bonanza was popular
Oh,
here.
right,
We used
exactly.
to have them come. A lot of it was not really filmed at Tahoe at Incline, but some of it was. But at times, so they came as at one of the parades we had. I'm not sure which one it was, but all 4 of the people from the Bonanza were there. Oh, that was fun then.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then people would always say, are they coming back? Will they be back up here? But they did make it a few times a year.
And my mother was a tour guide.
Yes.
She worked at the Collar Mansion and also the Castle. But when she was at the Collar Mansion, as Joan mentioned, they had a cocktail party for the 4
That's
guys
right.
at the Bonanza. And so she said, come on up. She said, and help me serve cocktails. So I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you still hear about the parade, the Bonanza Day parade, that first one. You still hear people talk about how
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
the town was bursting at the seams.
Oh, it
practically.
was. It was.
And they'd ask my mom, where do they live?
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which one's the Cartwright's house?
I think they thought they were here a lot.
Right.
I think because anytime anybody asked, they'd say, "Will they be here today?" or something. Well,
Right.
not really, but anyhow,
Yeah.
it was good to talk about
Exactly.
it. But then the Ponderosa Ranch was a wonderful thing up there that they
Yeah.
had for a while too.
They'd ask my mom a lot too when she was tour guide. She'd take people through and explain all about Virginia City and whatnot. And they say, do people really live here?
No, it's like Disneyland. It closes at night.
Yeah.
Kick everybody out.
It was
funny.
really interesting in the wintertime because the water froze every year.
Oh, right, yeah.
And we had to have buckets of water and jugs of water. And my dad cussed the guy out that had the flumes and everything because we knew every winter we were going to be without water and taking a sponge bath. Oh, I hated taking sponge baths.
We had to.
But in 1952, we were out of water for 3 months.
Yes,
No water.
yes.
What happened is what I understood is that the flumes, our waters came in through the wooden flumes, and those flumes froze and broke, and they couldn't get in to fix them because there was too much snow that year. So we were without water for
All
3
that.
months.
My dad and I took a walk along the flumes one time, one summer, and my dad was cussing Blue Street, but it wasn't covered. There was places that was covered with wood over, but most of it wasn't uncovered. And he said, "What do we know? What is dying in there? And I'm going to have your mother boil the water from now on,
Yeah.
and it was kind of eerie, I think I went home and I wanted a drink of water, and I'm going, I don't know whether I need it that bad or
Right.
not.
Well, they had to bring big trucks in, of course,
Yeah.
and they'd get there and we'd fill our bathtub.
Uh-huh.
That's what we had to do to have the water.
Yeah.
We had to have the tubs, and they drive the muddy hose through the
Didn't they?
house.
Oh, yeah.
And my
I
dad
bet
always...
Mom loved that.
Yeah, well, and my dad would always, Bud Hunter would do it. Sit down, Bud, and we'll have a drink.
Sure.
That's just what Bud needed. Was a drink. Yeah.
That was not fun for anybody,
Oh,
though.
oh,
That
no.
was
Sure.
really hard times when you
It
think
was
about it.
terrible. It was really bad times.
And
We'd
Mom
go
would say-
down to Carson, what is it, Carson Hot
Hot
Springs,
Springs.
Yeah.
for our showers and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once in a while, our parents, through that time, would rent a motel.
Yes.
And we'd go to a motel.
Yeah. Well, we usually went to George and Margaret Myers' house because Mom
Oh.
and they had a beautiful home and beautiful bathroom, and I just, oh boy, this is heaven,
Yeah, that was not easy.
It's amazing what you take for granted until you lose it in your life, right?
Yeah, really, you sure do.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that came up on the wonderful questionnaires you filled out before, that was very helpful, so thank you for taking the time to do that. One of the answers was one of your favorite parts of growing up in Virginia City was the characters in town. And I know we've mentioned a few here, but are there any characters that we haven't, people in town, unique individuals that we haven't talked about yet that come to mind?
Remember Bruno and Axel?
Sure.
Who were Bruno and Axel?
Well, they were two characters. Bruno and Axel had different homes, didn't they?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Joan lived up on C Street at that time, and I always go up there to play. And she would say, let's put little rocks into Bruno's keyhole. And Bruno wasn't
We
very
did.
happy with that, was he?
But that wasn't nice, was it?
Do you get the concept that Joan was the leader of all of us,
Oh, my goodness.
Something happened, I can't remember what it was, and my dad said, if Joan Gallagher told you to jump off of a tall building, you would. I wouldn't either, and I went in and sat on my bed, and I thought, he's right. She'd tell me I was having the most fun jumping off of this tall building.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, it sounds like you have had a lot of fun. So.
We have.
We did.
There was a lot. Do you remember? There was Charlie Addis.
Oh, yeah.
Charlie.
Oh, God,
And
yes.
we called him Itchy Addis.
We did. Where did we get that?
Well,
Because he
because
was
he'd
always-
walk down the street.
Oh, he was.
And then he'd go up against the buildings.
Yeah.
Right.
And he'd walk with his hands in his pocket and
Yeah.
do this
Yeah.
all the time. He probably didn't take a bath very often.
And Mike the garbage man.
Oh,
Mike
yeah.
the garbage man.
Tagada
Yeah.
Mike.
We called him Garbage Mike.
Or
Garbage
Tagada
man.
Mike.
Yeah.
What is it?
Tagada, because he
Tagada.
always used to say, Tagada get the garbage.
And then I've also heard him referred to as Mike the Garbage, because I guess that's what he would yell when he's coming down the street to
Yeah.
get up, Mike the Garbage. So that, I guess he has huge
Yeah.
names.
And sometimes on our back porch, my mom would store different things out of our home. And she'd have to run out and protect them because Garbage Mike would take everything off of the porch. It didn't matter what it was, bicycles or
Yeah.
It's very efficient, very thorough.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Yeah, I forgot about
And
it.
he lived down in 6 Mile Canyon, didn't he? In a barn, wasn't it?
I think so.
Wasn't it where Mildred Murray and her husband kept their horses?
Oh, it might have been down there, huh?
Maybe so.
Probably.
Because I think I remembered Dad driving by and saying, there's where Tagada Mike lives, and I thought,
I think so.
"Ooh."
Yeah, I
No
think
wonder I
so.
don't want to get near him when he's coming to pick up the garbage.
There were some characters, though.
Oh,
There were.
Everybody was a character if you want to really know the truth.
Yeah, true.
I love reading your former employer's newspaper, the Territorial Enterprise, the Comstock Vignettes section.
That's right,
Uh-huh.
yes.
And so interesting, all the people that you talk about, and it's just these little tiny, for those at home that aren't familiar with the Comstock Vignettes, it was just these little snippets of life, of something funny that someone said at the saloon, or something silly that someone did, and just you get these great senses of what fun people lived in town.
Yeah, that's true too.
Lucius
our
Beebe used-
grandfather- Oh, excuse me, Doris.
Lucius Beebe used to have a pig party every year. He'd get a suckling pig, and 4-Day Jack would cook it. Well, Joan and I worked for the Territorial Enterprise stuffing papers when we were in high school, and we were invited to this one, and she said, "Oh, I hope that they don't sit us in front of the pig's head."
No kidding, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guess where we sat?
I think we did.
We sat in front of
did.
the pig's head. But of course, by that time, we had a couple of little drinks that somebody
Mhm.
snuck into us, so we didn't care. But
Didn't
it was a
matter
lot
then.
of fun. And
Probably giving it to the pig, too.
And Charles Clegg was kind of on the borderline, wasn't he? And he was out there dancing with us, and Lucius was very prim and proper. And,
Yeah, we were associated with Lucius and Charles Lake, though. Mhm.
and they, when we graduated high school, they gave us a very nice bonus. didn't
Uh-huh. They
Oh,
did.
wow.
they? Yeah,
It was kind of fun working over there.
it was.
We did, you know, we had little machines we thought were wonderful. You stepped on and it folded the paper. Nowadays, my goodness. But then it was fun.
And we had to stuff the paper, the
Uh-huh.
front pages here. And the man, or the young man that ran the presses and did all of that, he just passed away not too long ago. And we got to go to, like I said, pig parties. We thought we were
Yeah,
really up there, you know.
Well, I unfortunately didn't get the opportunity to do that, but what I've heard, it's just BB and Clegg knew how to throw a party, so you're very lucky you got
Yeah.
to experience that, I think.
Yeah.
They were very good people that came into my dad's bar. They just thought my dad was wonderful, but they'd come for their before dinner drinks there almost every night.
Yeah, they had their favorite bartenders.
sure.
And they always went to Fred, you know, and my mom was a telephone operator for the telephone company, and I can't remember what it was, but somehow or other she got Charles Clegg on the phone, and she said a couple of things that she shouldn't have, and she had to apologize to him.
Did she?
Now, don't worry, Mrs. Gramhatz, that's fine. You know, I didn't think anything of it. And my mom felt so much better because, you know,
Sure.
it came out of her mouth before she realized.
Well, she's lucky, otherwise it would have ended up in the Comstock vignette section.
That's right.
Be careful,
It
she didn't
would've.
apologize, so good.
It really would have. My goodness, yes.
What were some other jobs that you had as kids?
I worked at a souvenir shop.
Okay, which one?
It was called the Big Bonanza,
Mhm.
and then there was the Totem Trading Post.
Yeah.
That's where I worked. They were owned by the same people. And
Could you
so-
tell us about the owners a little bit?
Pardon me?
Who were the owners?
Shettlers.
And what were they
Yeah.
like?
They were nice people. Yeah, they weren't natives of Virginia City.
No.
They came in a little later, and they bought the Totem Post store first. A Totem Trading Post was called,
Uh-huh.
I think,
Yeah.
and then the Big Bonanza. Their son ran that, and I worked for them. Then I worked one summer in the drugstore. And speaking of the drugstore, you reminded me. If we'd get a stomachache, my mother would say, "Go up and ask Paul Coriel for bismuth and paregoric." Do you guys
Oh,
remember
sure.
Yes.
that?
Sure.
Yeah.
And so we get paregoric and bismuth, and paregoric was a narcotic. But it sure helped our stomach.
Yes, it did. It did.
We didn't have stomach aches after that.
And he was nice.
Oh,
the
Mr.
pharmacist,
Coriel.
wasn't he nice?
Yes.
Nice.
Nice
And
man.
he was friends of Minnie Davis.
I
And-
was trying to think what her name was.
Yeah, Minnie Davis, and her daughter was also a phone operator, and her name was Susie Davis, and she had been in an accident. We were told she fell on a pitchfork or
Yeah.
something when she was young, and she lost her eyesight. So she was completely blind, and she would do the the telephone board.
She
And
worked for years, didn't she?
Yeah.
The number would come down, and she'd
Feel it.
take her hand up there, and then she would feel the number, and then she'd go down here, and it was a little hole, and she would feel along, and put the plug in.
Plug it in.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
My mom worked for that telephone company too, and I was amazed. I used to sit there sometimes and just watch her thinking, how can you do that?
I read somewhere, and I don't know if this is true, but a newspaper of the day when she first started said that she was the only one in the whole country, the only blind telephone operator.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
I was going to tell you too, my grandfather was a hoist engineer at the Crown Point, wasn't
Wow.
it? Yeah, it was our grandpa. And my other grandpa, on my mother's side, was a teamster. And he would drive the big wagons, and he would, I don't remember exactly at that time, but those were the wagons I was playing on. And he would haul the ore out of Virginia City and groceries needs. So that was his job.
That's a real piece of history right there.
Right
you know?
there, yeah.
They work so hard, those
Yeah.
miners.
They work
Oh,
very
I'm sure.
hard.
Yeah.
Long
Yeah.
hours.
Uh-huh.
And my one grandfather worked 6 days a week for sure, and sometimes it was 10 and 12 hours a day. That was, that's not easy.
No,
when you
and it
hear
was
that.
hard jobs they
Right,
did, too.
yes, yeah. And he was raising 4 kids at that time, and he had to work. So,
You bring up a good point. You ladies each had the privilege of being able to interact with people who were in Virginia City when it was getting started, like the first 20, 30 years of its existence, in its mining heyday. Who were some people that you had to interact with or meet or know?
My grandpa.
Yeah.
His name was Charles Young, and like I said, he
Yeah.
was the hoist engineer
Mhm.
at the Crown Point, wasn't it?
I think it was
Yeah,
the
it was
Crown
at the Crown
Point. I'm
Point
sure
mine.
it was, yeah.
And my other grandfather was Thomas Dick, and his father came here, and his mother. And I read an article out of one of the Virginia City newspapers, and it said that my great-grandfather was going down the street holding his twin boys, and that was my grandpa and his brother.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Do you remember meeting any of the old timers? When
Meeting
you were a
them?
kid? Yeah.
Uh,
Oh,
oh, yeah.
yeah. We knew a lot.
I remember her family,
Sure.
the Dick family.
Mhm.
And, and then my grandfather, let's see, was working in the mines, and when he died, it would be great-grandfather, my grandfather was born just shortly after. Yeah. And they were all connected with the mines up here at one time or another.
They all were.
Even my dad worked in the mine mills.
Mine
Yeah,
did too.
sure.
Yeah. Dad worked before he tended bar at the Norcross.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
can't remember which one dad worked at, but yeah, so.
Yeah. Yeah, there was lots of characters too, as we
Yes,
said.
absolutely.
Remember your friend Crying Annie that you worked with?
Oh, yes, crying Ann. Bless her heart. She would get drinking a bit sometimes, and she'd sit out and she'd cry. She'd just cry all the time. But I worked in Carson City at a little store, and she passed away. Annie, she would stop and visit me when they'd go grocery shopping, because the grocery store was nearby, and she'd come and visit me. And when she passed away, she left me her purse.
Oh, sweet.
And Harry, who was her husband, brought Annie wanted you to have this, so I got her purse.
You know, it's going awfully close to now, but a character in town, they know him too, was Virgil Bucanero.
Oh, God.
And we just loved him. He was quite a friend, and he was quite a friend of Angelo's, and they were born on the same day. So we always had Christmases and things together like that. But he was so smart, and he was very, very good to everybody. But he was kind of considered a character in my mind.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
exactly.
He was also an alcoholic. He was a lawyer. He happened to be my husband's friend.
Mhm.
They'd come up to Virginia City and go to the Delta, and
Yeah.
the Lord was watching over them when they were coming home, because this is before we were married. But yeah, they would get a snoot full, and what did he drive? What was it? A Model T?
Oh, that
or-
Model T?
Model
I think
T.
it meant Model A or Model T, what do you
Yeah.
call it? One of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
her grandparents had an old car that had a rumble seat.
Yes.
And my mom would say, be sure you don't ride in their rumble seat. Well, that's the first place we got.
Oh, sure.
And then go for a drive, we got the rumble seat.
Yes, that's right, too.
Yeah, we were just little
Gosh.
kids.
And the rest of the characters, we'll probably think of a lot of them after we...
After.
That's okay, we can do it again.
Oh. So I know.
Joan, you mentioned Angelo. Would you share with us how you two met, how you two got engaged, and what about
Well,
them?
we tell this story.
Okay.
I was engaged to someone else.
Oh.
And Ange and Jim were in the same fraternity. And so Jim came up one time, and we were at a ball game down here. And Ange said, I want you to meet my brother, Nate. And so that's really and truly how I met him. And then after a while, things changed a little bit. And then we were married in 1959. And he took over the Delta Saloon and has run it up until 14. He sold it in 14 now. And that was our courtship, I guess you'd say. But and then we had the 3 daughters, and now I have some grandchildren now. So that's kind of the story of our life.
Love it. Yeah, the Delta, of course, very historic property in town, something that people interact with.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been unique for you to be there.
Yeah, I miss
and
it.
witness
I
that.
have
Yeah,
to
what was
say
that
I
like?
miss it a
Yeah.
lot.
Mm-hmm.
We always saw so many nice people, and they all came back.
Mm-hmm.
And we do miss it. It's too bad that it had to happen, but anyhow, it did.
And that's where I met my husband.
Oh, is that right?
Was at
Okay,
the
that's a
Delta.
great
Yes.
segue.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear
yeah,
that.
yeah.
At the
Well,
Delta.
Joan would say, let's go to the Delta. Let's go
Mhm,
in
mhm.
and talk to Angelo. Well, her was always talking to Angelo.
Yeah, and that's where you met.
And that's where we met.
Yeah.
And that's just, we were, the 4 of us did a lot together, too.
Yeah, we did.
And then,
It was
did
always fun.
you get married first, or did we get married first?
You did in May, and
That's
we
right.
were in October
That's right.
of the same year.
Yeah.
You were the year before.
Yeah.
Would you like to share your engagement story?
I didn't really have an engagement.
That's a story. Well, that's a story in itself.
Yeah, we got married in my mom's home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was very small. Just our family was there, and that was it. And after we married, we had little children, and that was it.
Tell us who are your children?
My children, I have one daughter that's living, and her name is Lisa, and she's married to James Gale. And my other children in school.
I'm sorry, to hear that. What are their names?
My children's names, Denise, who's my daughter, and Michael, and Lisa, and then the baby that we lost was James.
It's really hard, but thank you for
It's
telling
hard,
me.
very hard.
Joan, can you tell us your children's name?
Pardon me?
What are your children's names?
My children?
Yes.
Well, I had 3 daughters. We lost one. So my daughters are real growing up
Yeah.
now. They're much older now, and I have I have 3 grandchildren, and I have a great grandchildren on the way.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's going to be nice for us.
And did you have children?
Yes, I did. I had
What
a
is their
son
names?
and 2 daughters. We lost our son several years ago. But my daughter Susie has 3 daughters, which the youngest one, Hunter, is going to be married in October to, I have to laugh at this. His name is Ezra Jones. And when Susie told me, I thought, he's got a biblical first name and a very common last name. But he is the sweetest guy. He stays at my house because he got a job at Southwest Gas, and he was living at Spanish Springs, so it was a long way in. And then I have a daughter, Ann, and she has a son, Ty, and her husband, and they live in Gardnerville, and so does Susie and her family live in Gardnerville. And I had a son, like I said, and we lost him, so.
What's his name?
His name was John Lee Gilly.
Thank you for sharing. You know, that's got to be quite hard, but it's wonderful that you each have each other, you know, to have that shared experience.
Yeah. And it's
reaching
kind
each other.
of weird
Yeah.
that out of, the class that we were in, 3 of us have lost children. We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we are together, that's what's nice too,
That's-
that you
yeah.
can.
And thank God that we have our religion to
Exactly.
hold us up,
Exactly.
and our beliefs. We're all Catholic, and the nuns would come up and teach us.
If we went to class.
But, but really, we went most of the time because our parents would say,
They would tell, but sometimes when we ditched out, the nuns would go to our mothers and say, that we didn't show up, so.
know.
And they
there
were
was
so nice. And
One
they helped
little
us.
nun, she was just a little tiny thing. What was her name?
Catherine,
Oh, my
Sister
gosh.
Catherine.
Sister Marie, was it?
The Marie
No.
was, I don't know.
No, I
Anyway, they got smart because we would go out the front way and go up to C Street. Well, they had a nun at the back door. They had a nun at each side door and at the front door. And as the Catholic girls came out, they were grabbed by the nun and we marched down to church to catechism.
If our moms didn't get after us, huh?
Yeah.
But the 3 of us have stayed with our religion like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. And what a church you got to go to church at. I mean,
We were all
it's just
baptized there, weren't we?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
one of the most special, beautiful.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're not just friends.
Yeah.
We're, we've been through a lot,
Right.
and we're really close.
Mm-hmm. And we can talk to each other about things.
That's
that
what's nice.
hurt
Yeah.
our hearts. And it's nice to have our friends that we can chat with.
But
because they understand us.
Right.
There's
absolutely.
one in this group, she was really mean.
Me?
She used to get my papers at school and tear them up. Oh, yeah, you did.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
you did. Or she
golly.
waylaid me when I was coming out from school, and she'd take my books and
Why
throw
would
them
I
on the
do
ground,
that?
And my dad said, "Why do you let Joan do that?" "Because I'm afraid of her," I said.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then, all of a sudden we just matured.
Thank goodness.
And all of us we're like sisters. We're bound by love for each other.
Right. And we can call each other and say, oh my God, I feel so bad today. Or I feel so happy. Or whatever
Yeah.
is in
Yes.
our hearts. We can share with
Yeah,
each
that's
other.
right.
such a gift.
Mhm. It is a
It is.
gift.
That's
Absolutely.
The boy growing up in the years of grammar school, he was tough.
We had some great teachers, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some, I
Yeah.
think, we thought they were really tough.
Sure.
But they were good teachers,
They were
weren't
all
they?
good teachers.
We really learned from them.
Particularly Sadie Smith.
Oh, yeah.
She was our 5th grade school teacher, and I remember my decimals and fractions to this day.
Okay.
She was
Smith did a good job.
She was a wonderful teacher.
Yeah.
And our states and capitals.
Our
Oh,
states
yeah.
and
We
capitals.
had
We'd
to
have
do
memory
that.
work
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
day.
But
So
then
we
she
went-
used to wear this pin, a red S, and earrings were the red S. And we weren't very nice because we called her Sadie the Seal.
She was very, very smart, though.
She was.
She was
Yeah.
very nice teacher. She was a good teacher.
One of her grandsons still live here in town.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Remember where they were before, next to where Nan and Pa were?
Uh-huh.
Well, that's where they
Oh,
are.
really?
He lives there, yeah.
Mrs. McCory lived next door,
Mrs.
too.
McCory.
Oh, that was
That's right.
Mrs. Smith.
That's another
Oh,
one.
yeah.
You remember that name? I forgot that
Yeah,
name.
Mrs. McCory. Oh, gosh. The good old days. We're surely remembering a lot.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And we'll
But-
probably forget so many things that we'll say, gee, we should have said that. But
Yeah.
No problem.
When-
Give us a call and we'll set up another one. We'll set up a sequel, part 2.
I was just going to say, we had a teacher, a man that came into Virginia City. He wasn't a native or anything. His name was Mr. Zobek. And was he ever a dresser? He looked immaculate all the time.
yeah.
Well, we didn't have any water, so we'd have to get cups of water. And I think it was Ron Gallagher, if I'm not mistaken, came and I was studying and he poured a glass of water, just the little cups down my neck. I got so mad I went, got a cup of water, and I was walking and I thought I saw Ron peeking through the door, the crack in the door. And I reached around and let the water go, and it was Mr. Zobat.
I was out in the hall when you did that. Oh my God, I was so afraid for you. I didn't know what to do.
Oh, but those things stay with you.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they do.
they do.
Sounds like the scene out of a Three Stooges movie or something like that, right?
And he was so immaculate.
Oh my God. Never
Yeah.
taught everything. But he only taught there 1 year, I believe.
He couldn't take us for another year.
Couldn't stand it.
Oh my God.
So if there's anything that you think that we haven't talked about or touched on or something you wanted to make sure that we touched on, now's a great chance for that. But if not,
I was just going to say quickly that a lot of our relatives are buried out here in the cemetery.
Oh, yeah.
And just recently, my sister and my cousin went and got new markers and rock and everything for my great-grandparents. So that's nice.
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And they're doing a lot of work here in the
Yes.
cemeteries now,
Yeah,
too,
the
keeping it
cemeteries,
very
yeah.
nice.
yes.
We just had, in fact, Fred Garrett was just buried out there, you know.
Oh, is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and that's
Oh.
very nice out there where he is, in the Catholic.
Uh-huh.
I didn't think they had anybody buried out in the Catholic.
They still do, and you know who is the Joyce's husband, Greg Heskey?
Uh-huh.
He digs all the graves out
Oh,
there.
really?
Mhm. Yeah,
Oh, my
He did for
gosh,
Fred.
wow.
but they still have, and they've got people working now that are really helping. So there's a lot more land that we can get for out there now.
Oh, okay.
Mhm. And that's good. I'm glad because there's still
I
people.
like
that-
it when I know it sounds strange, but I like to look at the old markers and I think, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
these people
Yeah.
were here,
Mhm.
you know, so many years
Sure.
ago, and you just
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
there. I remember I was walking with my sister Debbie when she was little, and my mom, one day we were walking through the graves, and my little sister said, oh, she said, Anna has gone. There was a finger pointing. They
Oh.
put a finger on the
Oh.
and there was a finger. It really struck her, and I always remember that.
Yeah, that brings up a great point, and I think this is a great end note. It's just, you look at these markers and you almost wonder, well, who were they? All you have is a name, a date,
Yeah.
maybe a description,
Mhm.
and the rest is sort of left up to wonder.
Uh-huh.
And what each of you ladies have done today by sharing with us your memories, to you they just mean, well, that's just my life. But it's very important and very helpful for us who didn't get a chance to meet these people. You're speaking for them. You're giving us a little more than just a name and a birthday, and and that for us. So for that, I really thank you.
There
That's
was a
very
lot of
helpful.
babies and children too, that they get the flu and things that nowadays that can be taken care of.
Oh, sure.
But there was a lot.
That's right.
Well, thank you very much, just for this absolute pleasure of getting to get a taste of what it was like growing up for you here in Virginia City. It just sounds like a really special.
It was a fun place,
Yeah, and it was so nice to have you be interested in
Yeah,
our stories
exactly.
too.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh,
Thank you.
if I could do this for hours and
Oh.
and listen to you guys talk, and I'd love to do this another time sometime.